Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Instructor Insights, where I have a chat with a driving instructor or someone related to the industry, and we just see where it goes. There's no agenda. We just invite you to listen along, criticise, comment as you wish. So today I've got Craig Nickson with me, who is from the Driving Instructor College, but I'll let Craig tell you roughly what he does. Hi, Craig.
Chris, yeah, good morning. So I'm Craig. I've been a driving instructor for 25 years now. I've got a vast experience behind me of teaching learners, people to become instructors, coaching, developing driver attitude. I also specialize in delivering training to the emergency services. That's response training. I've spent time doing pursuit training and fire appliance driving and lots of other things. So I have lots of things going on. I deliver truck training, category D1 training as well, and instructional training for all of those, including online training. And yeah, there's quite a lot that I've got, so it stops me getting bored. So I'm quite happy doing what I do. So in short, that's me in a nutshell.
It comes under that heading of I'm a trainer.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is
It does come under that heading.
it's always such a mixed box, and I think we have to remember this when we're at test centres or the expo coming up at the end of this month. I've just put a post up about that on Facebook, and you know, there's no two driving instructors, no two trainers are the same. There's all of these kind of this is where I've come from subtle nuances to absolutely different worlds apart to the people who are still trying to figure it out. I said before we started, I still go, I don't want to be a trainer. It's I end up in that box. I keep ending up in that box, but I just I want to enjoy my job, and I don't know what my job
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, if you enjoy it, it's not a job anymore, is it? It's a hobby, and that's it. You never work a day in your life if you enjoy it. So
Absolutely. So we're going to kind of focus on that emergency response side of things because it's something not I've not done anything in particularly myself. I've worked with quite a lot. Had a bit of a reputation for the local coppers who were having to go and do their sort of class one and things like that, of go and polish off the basic skills. And they'd get in the car, and as we went through, I've got an understanding of roadcraft, and I've worked with lots of police coming through that were decided to become driving instructors. I pick up bits, and
yeah.
that through it they'd start going, hang on a second, this isn't what I was expecting. But it was very much just on a driving level. What is it, what's the focus of things, and also, how did you get into it in the first place? Is that your background?
I started as an ADI or PDI in the year 2000,
Should be
and I went to BSM with my trainee license, and I very quickly realised that £323 a week franchise was just not affordable. So I qualified. The rest is history. Then 6 years later, I saw a job advertised for the police. An ADI was wanted for the police driving school, in-house development, all the rest of it. So that's how I got into it. I weren't particularly interested in going into that line of work. It just sort of the advertisement came to my notice at the right time. I think I seen it in the newspaper or something. I applied along with 80 other applicants, and they obviously saw something they liked because I was the only one to be offered a position. So it's all, the main focus really is on developing attitude. Yeah, knowledge is important, but I think driver attitude is the most important thing that we try and develop within the emergency services, because unfortunately, police, ambulance, fire, whoever they are, army, mountain rescue, irrelevant. A lot of people drive with their noble cause thought process. I can take this risk because I'm trying to get somewhere to help an individual. But of course, we know that turning a tragedy, an emergency into a tragedy just isn't acceptable. And that often happens due to red mist setting in. So I personally focus a lot, whilst we develop skill, we focus a lot on the chimp paradox, I suppose, really,
Mhm.
how the inner voice can be a demon when it comes to driving, especially under those pressurized situations.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, driving for me is a series of constantly changing decisions, and it doesn't matter what level you're driving at. It's the choices that we make. And interestingly, on the theory, the question that comes up so often that people are confused by is which one of these is the biggest cause of of a crash or what have you, and it's the road, the weather, the driver, and the car, the vehicle. And they was like, but why is it the driver? Well, because you're
Mm.
the one. You are the one in that situation, and it must be so much more challenging when you know that on the end of that shout there's potentially a life-threatening situation going on, that all of those things, and the world is getting in your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to add to that, I mean, I was never an operational police officer, but I had the benefit, for want of a better expression, of playing cops and robbers, properly, because we did a lot of pursuit training and simulated situations. So I would simulate different scenarios. I would say to the students, three of which in a car for a 3-week period for a standard car course. And when it comes to the response element, the blue lights, I would say to them, okay, you've just received a radio message and a PC urgently requires your assistance. And I'd give them a location to go to, and between them, they'd work together, use sat nav, whatever, the real distractions that they're going to face. And I would just be there as a safety blanket, and that's not just me. We were all the same thing. And then we had the pursuit side of things. And what people fail to realize is the faster they approach something, of course, the more they get held up, because people, as in members of the public, we're busy in our own worlds. We've got stuff going on, we've got life happening. We're tired, not sleeping well, dropping the kids at school, not eating well, whatever's going on, and all of this just has an impact on our decision making. And often the police will arrive at a situation, traffic lights, usually too fast. They'll fly up there, hit the brakes, then there's a load of noise that arrives, and then we jump, and where's that coming from? And then we've got to try and figure out how we're going to get out of the way to allow the police to come through. And yet the emergency service driver doesn't realise that they're doing that to themselves, owing to the internal pressure that they're putting on themselves because of the shout at the other end of the radio that's come through. Does that make sense?
But oddly, that's incredibly similar to learner drivers. That it's the same process. Driving instructors have a habit of saying, less space, less speed, or it's all about the amount of space you've got around you. But I've always said that it's not quite right. It's the space-time ratio, that what you're actually doing is making time. And the second you end up reducing time, the world falls apart around you, because it's the one thing that we don't really have control of. Once it's gone, it's gone. But what we can do is optimize it on the way in, and it's that element. I don't think we talk about time enough, and it's really interesting that your description there would fit perfectly for a learner driver who's thinking about their driving test coming up and their brain's going out to that pressure, or they're thinking about their mates that are on the pavement that are watching them drive past, and that pressure. And it doesn't go wrong until you run out of time. I can't think of an exception to that, and there's always an exception, but one doesn't spring to mind. Time is, Doctor Who had it right, didn't he, or she, or they,
Or
whichever.
they. Go with they.
Whichever doctor is your preference, but yeah, no, absolutely. I find that really, really interesting.
And just to sort of come back to you there on the time issue, a good friend of mine who I learnt a lot from within the police driving school, we used to do a response workshop whereby at the start of week 3 of their standard car course, we would deliver a presentation talking about legal exemptions that are afforded in law, things that you might find yourself needing to do that you have no legal protection from, rather, but can it be justified, etc. I could go on. I'm not going to, but he used to say to the class, the first thing I do when I go away on holiday is take my watch off. He said, I eat when I'm hungry. He said, but here I eat at 12 o'clock or like, whatever. And I thought, so right. He said, there are 3 things in life that really spoil your life: people, money, and time. PMT, and I said, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So as a driver, you cause yourself a problem by not giving yourself time. And you're absolutely right, Chris. And that's why I lit up with a big smile when you said about time, because nobody, well, no, that's unfair. Not many people think of driving as time.
Mm.
I always say to learners as a simple concept, traffic lights are red. What do you want them to do for you before you arrive? So if you want them to change to green, let's encourage them by slowing the car down. They'll tick through the timer and you won't have to stop. It's going to be a nice, more progressive drive for you. So yeah, time is really of the essence. And that in
Yeah.
itself will create more space.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, it is. It's the thing that connects all of us, and it doesn't matter on the level. I'm thinking about when I've done work for fleet work, delivery driver stuff, same pressures, same constraints, same things that go wrong. It is probably the thread that holds all of those different things together. So the thing that came up, and you popped a post over the weekend or replied to a post on Facebook, and this triggered my thought. So I did a bit of sort of the ROSPA advanced stuff and what have you, and the thing that came up the most regarding that was the difference being about you choose, you think more, there's all of these choices, and the one that's never quite sat right with me, which is what was touched on at the weekend, and I thought that is a conversation I want to have, was that you almost get criticized for signaling by rote, right? So systematic signaling, as I would refer to it with my learners. The Mine would be look, tell, do. Others people's would be mirror, signal, maneuver. But start with, I can't spell maneuver. And if anyone hasn't come across look, tell, do, chrisbensted.co.uk. I've got an article on there now because I've explained it to so many people. I thought I'll just put it in writing. It's easy. But yeah, that kind of approach is brilliant. It works as a system. But then you go and do advanced, and they go, oh no, you shouldn't be signaling. There's no one to signal to. And I struggle with that one. What are your thoughts first, and I'll come back with my my issue with it.
Right. So before I joined the police driving school, I was the same as you. I was mirror signal maneuver, MFPSL, look, tell, do in your words. And I really like that, by the way. It's very simplistic and it's very effective. Yeah,
That's
good on
how
you. Well done.
I like to be described as simplistic and effective. That's
Well,
my goal in life.
you got it's being careful, isn't it? I wanted to make sure I finished it off with the istic bit, not so. um, yeah, but in answer to your question, I would signal when before I joined the police driving school. I knew of advanced driving, but not properly and all the rest of it. And if I'm being perfectly honest, and I remember having this conversation on the standard car course with my trainer. Why I'm doing something, I'm letting people know what I'm doing. And he said, yeah, but there's nobody to signal to, da 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 da. So when I sat and thought about it, he said, if you actually observe an environment properly, um, you look at the road ahead and behind, you can see if there's anyone to benefit from a signal. And it just encourages proper thought process and observations. So my thoughts are, yes, it does. It keeps me sharp because it ensures I am looking for an individual to signal to. So I'm keeping myself sharp as an instructor. Um, does it really matter if a learner driver is signaling whenever they do anything? I suppose not. What matters is how aware they are of what's going on around them. And I know you and I agree on that, Chris. What are they aware of before they do whatever they do? Does it matter that they signal left every time they turn left? Does it matter they signal right every time? No. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding with it. If let's say you're in a right turn only lane, and we only know it's a right turn only lane because there's an arrow on the floor that says in this lane you should turn right. There's nothing else that stops you from going straight ahead. In that scenario, a signal would be beneficial to everyone because pedestrians don't look for road markings. Pedestrians rely on indicators and all the rest of it. If there's a physical barrier or something stopping you going straight ahead and you can only go in one direction and there's no one around, then do we need to signal? No, but again, what harm would it do? It's, I'm with you. It's literally
Mhm.
six of one and half a dozen of the other. The reason I try and insist on it is I want to stay sharp as a trainer in terms of my observations, because I might start getting lazy and not watching what's going on properly.
Yeah. So, my issue with it is, and I've battled with this for a long, long time because, so to take two steps back, just to reiterate and grow what you've said a little bit when we're talking about learner drivers, it's often that thing of, well, why don't I signal every time I pull away from the curb? It's that one of, I've stopped. I'm in a road with no one there. There's no harm putting a signal on. It's not an issue. We're not limited on how much we can give. It's just pointless. We recognise that it's pointless at that moment in the middle of the desert. Are you gonna are you gonna put a signal on? And is anyone going to object to it? No. So it's an irrelevant signal in all ways. But in making it a choice, it means that you ensure the observations are happening and the awareness is happening. So it's not about the signal, it's about the observations, as you say. And that really is the reasoning for going, well, let's make it a choice, because otherwise people do it or don't do it because they suddenly go, oh, it's pointless anyway. And then it ends up you don't do it when you need to, like most safety critical checks, most safety things. It's about, the 1 millionth time that you've done it. The other 999,999, there was nothing there. That one time you don't take out the cyclist or whatever it is. And we've all been on the other end of it, where the one time we haven't, and we've suddenly gone, oh, I always do that.
Mm-hmm.
One time is the one that catches you out, because 1,000,000 to 1 chance it happened 9 times out of 10. So there's that, and I get that bit. And I went full circle, and I came back to, with the greatest respect, right? But I came back to, arrogance is my issue.
Mm.
And that, who am I to think that I am good enough to see everything,
Mm.
to make that choice for other people? Because I'm deciding, do they need it? And
Yeah,
there's
absolutely. You're influencing them, aren't you? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think, I don't know if arrogance is the right word, but it's the closest I've got to it. And I've dealt with a lot of people on that arena. It's probably a fitting one for some of them. That there's the I'm better than you approach, rather than being, I want my driving, in the way that you've just described it. I want to be spot on. I want to challenge myself in that way. That means that I am going to be improving and be better all the time. I love that. But it crosses a fine line to, I am better than you, which then
Mm.
becomes an issue. And I think that's where I struggle. I think I've moved past the is it important element, but I I've come back round to the fact that sometimes we cause a problem in our solution, and I liken it to, um, 10 to 2 steering. Does that matter? Push pull steering, does that matter? Do you know what? In some ways, yes. From a technique and understanding, a being optimum, best practice perspective, we have a habit of throwing the baby out with the bathwater because we work to a minimum standards industry with the DVSA. But actually, when you're out there hurtling towards stuff at silly speeds, and you're working to a different set of rules than everybody else, those things are really, really important, because actually, it's not minimum standards. Minimum standards are what cause it to go horribly wrong. So I think that's, if that explains where I come at it from. And what would you like to say? Yeah, come
Yeah,
back.
firstly, um, I I don't think I agree with you that if you are on a completely empty road, i.e., there are no parked cars, there is nothing around, and
Hmm.
it's evident that there is nothing whatsoever anywhere, then fine, there's no need to give a signal. However, and I used to get this, all the time, snotty replies off traffic cops that, they come and do a bit of training, and they'll say, well, there's no one to benefit from a signal when I'm moving off here. I say, well, how many people are sat in these 150 parked cars that are sat on this road?
Mm.
Well, I don't know. Well, there you go then. What makes you think you can see absolutely everything? We as advanced drivers and instructors have got good observations. We're not the best. We're far from it. None of us are the best. We're constantly trying to improve. And like you said, I don't profess to see absolutely everything. I make mistakes. I'm fallible. We all make mistakes. And I learn from those mistakes, generally speaking. And so I think when the road is a complete and empty, carriageway, no parked cars, no nothing, then fine, there's no one to signal to, granted. But if there's any doubt at all, if then what does it matter? In relation to the minimum standards, I completely agree that that's where it goes wrong. You know, for me in the sort of line of work that I'm involved in at the other end of the spectrum, the emergency services end, people are sat in a goldfish bowl. So when you've got a police driver or an ambulance driver or a fire engine driver, they've got a big, massive "How's my driving" sticker on the side of the car. Yeah, in the form of police, ambulance, or fire. People know
Yeah.
exactly who to ring when standards don't go correct. People sat there on the phones, whatever. They wear a uniform. They're easily identifiable. And people are very quick to point fingers when accidents occur. Now, sadly, we only see when accidents or incidents occur. But if we take Great Manchester Police, just about 3 miles away from me is where the police driving school operates, and they do 20 million miles plus a year as a collective. There's approximately 1,300 vehicles as a fleet, and they probably have about 100 collisions a year. So when you can, 20 million miles a year and around 100 collisions, and 98% of those collisions are reversing accidents in a police, yard or whatever. And that's the same for every emergency service. There are some, obviously, that are more serious than that. Usually it's the ambulance service, because they are under much more pressure. They might have a pediatric patient that's, gravely ill or whatever, and they're trying to get them to hospital. The person in the back is trying to give care and communicate to the driver, so the driver might not be able to put sirens on. There's all sorts of internal battles going on for the driver.
Yeah.
So those minimum standards really must be drilled so that they don't become minimum standard, become, the medium sort of level standard, if you like. But for learners, does 10 to 2, quarter to 3 matter? Does pull push matter? No, not really. Are they steering the car safely? They could probably steer with the teeth as long as it was done safely, And to just top that off, I had a chap a few weeks ago who came to me. He was driving a vehicle with adaptations, and he wanted to retake his test, retake his test, because he had no right arm. He just had a short limb, effectively. But he was able to control the car perfectly fine with his left hand. So he came to me and sought my help. And it proves that you don't need to use pull push steering, because he was steering with his one hand, indicating using the wipers, doing everything he needed to do in the conventional way. His vehicle was kitted out with a lollipop and all the buttons it has.
Yeah.
But it proved that minimum standards are safe. That's the bottom line. Is it safe? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I was laughing as you said indicating using the wipers, and I was out with a learner the other day. I was in the back seat. She was actually doing that. For some reason, she decided the stick was on the other side, which is why I started giggling to myself.
Oh, yeah. To clarify, he wasn't indicating with the wipers.
I was one of the guys I did my training with, BSM, as with yourself. He drove, I think it was a Honda, and his indicators were on the other side. So during his training, we just accepted if the wipers went on, he meant left or right. Because it just, yeah, sorry, tickled me, distracted me then. But no, absolutely. I think what's interesting there is that difference, that move that that the industry's gone through. That I think is really difficult from a PDI. That's often where you and I both communicate, is in the PDI arena. particularly on Facebook. But excuse me. But the what isn't important, you need to know it. But what isn't important, why is the thing? Because if we can work around that, then we can figure out whether it matters. If we can work around that, we can figure out best practice, minimum standards, everything else. And I think, because it's fresh in my mind, because I've got a meeting with the DVSA in a couple of weeks. That's where I think the DVSA often get it wrong. They tell us what, they don't tell us why, and then they wonder why we get the wrong end of the stick, or we don't know, and they turn around afterwards and go, well, it's obvious. Well, it is if you've got that level of information. But treating us like mushrooms doesn't work. And I think also my other half's dad, he likes the, what do you call them? The police audit type YouTube channels. He's often watching those, and I think they are a really good example where people keep looking at what and not why. And I get it, and they want to hold people to account, and then they turn into a bit of a what's it? I'm trying not to use bad language on this, but swear if you need to. They turn into someone who it's about all about pointing fingers. Why is so important, like you said, have they got all that pressure going on behind them? And it is. I know I've done some work with guys who train ambulance drivers, quite a few times, and they're in that bubble where the emergency is in their vehicle. That's not the same for for police and fire in that way. They're carrying it with them.
There's so much pressure. It really is so much pressure. And again, that's not the closest thing I've been to that is driving my sister to hospital when she was in labour,
Yes.
And that was pressure enough.
Yeah.
And so when you've got a person, I can only imagine the level of internal pressure that you're putting on yourself, because you've got a duty of care to yourself as the driver, you've got a duty of care to the patient on a stretcher, you've got a duty of care to the paramedic and the doctors or whoever else might be in the back of the ambulance. You've got a duty of care to the public who you're trying to warn, to say, can you shift out of my way, please? Sharpish if you can, because I need to get this person to hospital. You've got a duty of care to ensure that when I arrive at the traffic lights that are on red, I don't arrive too fast and then cause an overreaction from any drivers coming in on green that will then create rear end shunts in the junction.
Yeah.
Because I'm then going to be delayed at that scenario because I've caused an accident owing to the presence of my vehicle. There are so many plates that they're spinning, and you're absolutely right that the pressure for ambulance driver is far greater than it is for others, just because they're in that bubble traveling down the road at the time.
And while not as heavy as a full fire appliance, they still weigh a bit. Those ambulances, that's a massive factor as well. Cars and bikes stop a bit quicker, but when you've got that extra weight, they've got to take that into account. There's so many factors that I think are important. I think it helps us remember that. I'm always a big fan of the blue light aware videos for all drivers. To be honest, I was going to say learners. No, for all drivers, it's important stuff. It doesn't portray what you're talking about, that headspace. I think that might be what needs to be added to that as a set of websites. It's some conversations with some empathic drivers that are doing it, trying to put that point across of going, we appreciate it gets in your way, and we appreciate that you panic. Which of us doesn't? I always say this: which of us doesn't turn into a bank robber when the blue lights come on behind you? Whatever vehicle, I don't care. Blue lights come on, and and to quote my good friend Fiona Taylor, it's not the first response, because that's an emotional one. It's the second response that's important. Do you push the gas or the brake? It's the same for them. They're going through those emotional responses, but hopefully training that people like yourself provide is a benefit. I'm just aware, before I forget, we've mentioned roadcraft a few times, and I know that some people won't know what roadcraft roadcraft is. I'll get you to just give a quick overview, but I will just add in that there is a new edition coming out next month. I'm now trying to think what next month is. So October 2025, in case people have found this later down the line. So there is a new edition coming out from TSO next month. Think, if you're going to go and buy it, hold off. Get the up-to-date one, or you'll just have to get a replacement. So
absolutely, yeah. And yeah, I think it's been updated several times. It first roadcraft in its first existence was first brought into fruition, if you like, 1936 it was. I could go on a massive history lesson about where it come from and all the rest of it, but I appreciate the time is tight. But the reason behind its development was the Chief Constable of the London Police Force wanted to bring down accidents within his force, and at the time he approached two racing drivers, the Earl of Cottingham and Sir Malcolm Campbell, who was the Bluebird chap responsible for speed records. Between them, they went around a couple of racetracks and looked at some scenarios and some, basically vehicle handling techniques. What causes a vehicle to lose its tyre grip, and therefore the collision, the resulting collision as a loss of tyre grip. And it was all born out of weight shift and dramatic weight transfer. So they came up with a system of car control, which is simply a way of approaching and negotiating hazards that's methodical, safe, and leaves nothing to chance. And it involves careful observation, early anticipation and planning, and a systematic use of vehicle controls to achieve and maintain maximum vehicle stability in all situations. So it's applicable in a car or in an articulated truck and anything in between, and it's all about giving yourself, you mentioned before, Chris, about time. It's about giving yourself head space and, more importantly, time to be methodical in how we do stuff in the car and shifting the weight of the vehicle around, so we smoothly steer, we smoothly brake, or we smoothly accelerate, because it's a dramatic shift in weight that creates the collision that we have at the end of the skid, if that makes sense.
Is that balancing of the platform, isn't it? Is the, that's the thing that always stuck with me, was just trying to think about having in Toyota, they had a digital one which was awesome, and you can't get it now, I don't believe. If anyone's got it, let me know. It was a digital glass of water. If you want to be more, more of an immediate threat to your pupils, put a bowl of water in their lap and tell them to drive like that, of not spilling it. Because if you've got that stability, you've got, as you said, that traction, that grip, that control. And that's where straight lining is always a big debate, isn't it? On particularly mini roundabouts and such. And do we teach it? Do we not? Again, not what, why? If they understand why, if they can conceive of why and they can manage it themselves, then awesome. And that just always brings me to mind, Lou Walsh said that, I'd said, I think it was me, said, surely all driving instructors want their pupils to be safe. And she gave me a Lou a look and said, actually, I want my pupils to be able to be dangerous. Stupid woman. What a stupid thing to say. I should know better. It's a Lou Walsh comment. There's always something behind it. And after you think about it, if they do it right, they're doing what they're told. If they know what wrong is, if they know what dangerous is, and they choose to do it right, that's a much better and stronger driver. Understanding and why is so important. The elements of roadcraft that you mentioned, because firstly, I just want to add, DVSA have no problem with IPSCA, the roadcraft system, being used for whoever.
Correct.
As long as it fits, it's fine. Correct. It actually says it on a piece of paper, which I can't find now, but it does say it somewhere. It says MSPSL, IPSCA, or another system. The point is there should be a system. So they're all for it. The two bits that I find fit really, really easily into driving instructors' worlds, the fact that information runs across everything and you've got the tug, take, use, give. I think that is better than anything that the DVSA have got in MSPSL or other, because it is ongoing and it's all encompassing and everything else. And limit points are the other thing that I think we don't teach enough, and people often have a mysticism about them.
Yeah.
What do you feel?
So right, yeah. So firstly, just your first point that you mentioned about teaching information, position, speed, gear, acceleration, the systematic way, roadcraft way of driving. DVSA have no problem with it. I remember speaking to several senior examiners, and I asked the question about tug, take, use, give, and they've all said it's absolutely fine if the learner has the ability to constantly assess and reassess the need to give information, and they can do that without a problem, and the timing of it and all the rest of it is correct, then there's no issue. And that's where a problem can stem from teaching or encouraging the use of system in relation to information. The DVSA MSPSL derives from the system of car control, from my understanding anyway. You might be able to educate me further on that, but from my understanding, that it sort of derives from the system of car control. The limit point is definitely something that needs to be included, and I teach limit points from the outset with learner drivers. Never used to. Never, I'll be honest, when I first started, limit point, what's that? I was quite blasé to it and thought I knew everything because I was the bee's knees, I was an ADI, and then very quickly realised that I've got a lot to learn. And
For those that don't know, can you give a 30-second
yeah,
snapshot of what that is?
absolutely, yeah. So the limit point is the furthest point along the road surface to which we have an uninterrupted view. So in simple terms, it's as far along the road surface as we can see before something interrupts our view. So if you imagine in your mind's eye two curb edges, one on the left side, one on the right side, and those curb edges coming to a point in the distance, that point in the distance would be the limit point. And the idea being that as you approach a limit point, if the road surface between you and the limit point is reducing to the degree that you're unable to stop, you need to lose some speed until you and the limit point effectively are moving along in harmony with each other. So if you move at 10 meters, the limit point should open 10 meters. And it has to correlate to what speed you're traveling without making it too complicated. If you're traveling at 30 miles an hour, you need 23 meters of road surface to stop between your bonnet and the limit point. It's dead simple. If you've got more than that, you have the ability to potentially increase speed. So as you approach a limit point, it may appear that the road surface is reducing in its distance, and that's telling you that you need to lose speed until you're both working together. And then if the limit point starts to open up and run away from you, that's saying to you, if all else is equal and it's legal to do so, you can start to catch the limit point by accelerating. And that's essentially, in a nutshell, the limit point.
Nice.
It's a systematic way of as roadcraft is a constant systematic way of judging the speed of a turn or a bend. I've got a few videos about the limit point on my Facebook group for those that are on it. It's obviously something I can offer further development in, and I think the DVSA really need to include it, because it's how many times, Chris, do we see on the forums, what speed should I tell my learner to turn a corner at? And you see 10 miles an hour or 15 miles. Can you stop in the distance you can see to be clear?
Yeah, and I think there's that again. What and why? I think so. It's that thing with the limit point. All of that information is really useful information for your grounding, for your understanding. Essentially, it comes down to, can you stop inside the space that you've got? It is one side of it, and then the other one is, are you in control of the vehicle, which is akin to it but not the same. And I think we then start going, well, I don't like numbers. I don't like your 23 meters. Yeah. So I don't like your 23 meters because I can't visualize distance. I'm really bad at it.
No.
So we go, well, can you manage that space? What's your feeling? It just brings to mind, what's your feeling on, is it the space that you can see, or is it half the space you can see because something else has got to stop as well? What's your...
In my opinion, if what we're doing is correct, we should be able to stop in half the distance we can see. And I think just out of being naturally defensive mentally as you're going into stuff, that in itself will occur. The only time the highway code mentions being able to stop in half of the distance is when it comes to driving on single track roads, because then it suggests you must be able to stop in half of the distance you can see to be clear. But we live in an island. We get lots of visitors that come, drive on different sides of the roads around our sort of area, our neighbours. And I've had multiple people going the wrong way around roundabouts towards me and all sorts. As I'm sure lots of other instructors have. I'm not on my own there. And like you say, drivers fall asleep or they pay less attention, end up in the wrong place. So can I stop? At the time of this collision, my vehicle was stationary. Simple. If you can stop, then what you're doing is fine. And I agree with you in distancing and measurements. Can you stop? Pardon the language, if it hits the fan, can you stop?
Yeah.
You know.
There's an interesting parallel to a conversation I've been having more and more, because I hate tyres and tarmac as how close should you get to the vehicle in front. And a lot of the time instructors will go, "Ooh, so what do you use then? Because we need something to use." I'm like, well, tyres and tarmac is how close can you get? I will always go with, can you get round it? Are you leaving enough space to get around it? That's maximizing, not minimizing your safety margin. I feel it's the same thing, isn't it? Is that thing of, and you touch on it there. That thing of, if I'm stationary, then I've done my job. But actually, if I can prevent the crash, even though someone else was doing something really silly, that's my job.
Yes,
My job isn't to be able to blame everybody else for all of the issues in the world. My job is to go through the world, making the world as good and better as possible, because
yes,
actually we all benefit from that, and that's a nicer way to approach it.
absolutely. I completely agree. Just very quickly, learner driver is responsible for trying to develop their ability to drive. The instructor is there to help the learner driver to develop. The trainer is there to help the instructor develop, to help the learner develop. And ultimately, together, we're all in it to prevent any collisions. If somebody else fails in their responsibility, then it's our responsibility to prevent that collision or whatever. Um, and I completely agree with what you're saying there about. I don't want to blame everyone. I just want to be able to keep the world a safer place and make it a better place for us all to use the roads as a collective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a lovely point to leave things. I am going to ruin things just for a second, because I suspect we've managed to get all the way through this without referring to the driving test. I can't
Yeah.
think of referring to. So we've looked at exactly what we're talking about, those optimum levels, the how can we be the best we can be in whatever arena we're in, and we've established that they're all the same. Yet we haven't had to go, what is that minimum standard that is required? What is the least that I can achieve across the whole thing? And I think, although I've now ruined that, I think that's an important thing to note. I think it's nice. We don't often get those conversations, and it's nice to kind of acknowledge it. So yeah, well, thank you very much. Are you going to be at the expo?
I am going to the expo, yes,
Awesome.
because I would like to meet and shake your hand and have a brew with you. There are lots of people that want to meet in person rather. I'm sure there's a few people that want to say hello to me, and there'll be some that don't. But yeah, I'll be going for sure.
I find it's always a weird experience. So the post that I put up today said, expo rule, and it is an expo rule that's been there for at least 3 years, that I was referring to. But I thought I'd see what people thought I meant. Terry Cook said, ditch the DVSA and watch Chris and Terry instead, because we are, for the first year, DVSA have got competition at the end when they speak to everybody. We're going to be speaking at the same time, which doesn't mean I've got FOMO, because I'm not going to hear what they say. But anyway, I understand if people don't come and see us, but please do. The selfie is mentioned on there, is an important part of the expo. I've ever since the year that Lou died really close to the expo, and we realised how important people found pictures of people that they knew, that we only see people once a year often, and that sort of thing. So I was very keen to actively encourage selfies, and a lot of us have done that since. So the selfie is important. I did think that might come up, but nobody. There's a couple of others that I'm not mentioning because they're not suitable for airing. Check out my Facebook profile if you want to. No one has got it yet, which is, if anyone comes to see me, please mention your name first because I'm so bad at names. I never know who's who. And I've got
Yeah,
people that have known me for over 15, 16 years who still come up and introduce themselves just to make sure I know who everyone is, because it is a big day with a lot of people and names. So
at the end
anyway,
of the day, you know, you speak to and help a lot of people, just like I do, just like we all do, and it's nice to. Hi, Chris, it's Craig. Do you remember me? Oh yeah, of course I do. Yeah, yeah.
oh, yeah, once I know who people, it's also you don't talk to people. They're on screen, you know.
Yes.
So I'm a big believer in everyone should have a profile picture on their badge, but um, it is that kind of going who's who and trying to join the dots. So I never mean offence by it, and I just found it easier to say everybody come over and say hello and name yourself first, because otherwise you've also got that awkward thing where someone's got a badge and you end up staring at their chest. So we don't want that kind of, or the badge is the wrong way round, so you're trying to lean round the back of it. So yeah, do that. We'll see if anyone on Facebook finds that. Just for a bit of fun before the expo. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for today. It's something I could talk
Welcome.
about for hours, and I think we've hopefully shown how it's not a different side to things. As I said at the beginning, it all comes under that same banner and same heading. It's just that we have different specialisms and skills that we can steal from each other to
Absolutely.
hopefully make the world a better place.
I'll happily come back again if you want me to, mate. Just let me know.
Absolutely, that'd be good. Thank you very much.